You got that?
Sorry, Keen. Are you ready to go?
Yeah, are you ready?
Yes, just wait till you see yourself on that back screen.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, my friends, let's begin. Good morning and welcome. My name is Joaquin Garbiso. I go by Keen. I'm a member of our benefits team here at the city. And today, what we're going to do is give a very high level overview of what's happening in regards to this transition between ICMA and NationWide. So, as you're aware, a communication was sent out on January 27th, giving kind of a high level update to what's happening, why is it happening, what does it mean for me. And part of this, please know that that is just one communication of much more to come. Right now, we are still within our procurement process. And what that means is that we're still working on the contracts right now. This process can take up to 4+ months. So during this time, what we thought would be advantageous for everyone is to provide these informational sessions, giving some high levels overview, but also to allow you the opportunity to ask questions. Now, I have been receiving some questions via email, and some of the questions look like this. Hey, Keen, what are the changes? Why did we make this change? Tell me about the procurement process. Are we doing this procurement process again? What is a record keeper? You keep mentioning what a record keeper is. Is it a retirement company? And then a common one is, Keen, does that mean I get to roll my money out to another group? Today, we're going to answer those questions for you. What I would ask you to do is, as Jared and team are getting ready to present, I'll introduce them here in just a second, is that we'll repeat the questions. So for those who are listening, and what we'll do is we're going to put together an FAQ, and a part of that FAQ we'll go ahead and send out to the city. Please know that we're going to be fully transparent throughout this whole entire process. ICMARC has been a fantastic partner for the city for the past 45 years. And during those 45 years, we have close to 29 plans with the city. And that is a lot of plans. Part of that, the assets accumulate up to over $500 million. So please know that we are not taking this lightly, and we're doing this very slow. And at the same time, just keeping you in the know. Now, I noticed that there are a few retirees here. Please know, retirees, there's more communication coming to you. The first wave of communication goes to active employees, and then next week, communication is going out to retirees. Retirees will also have the opportunity to have informational sessions specifically to their retirement, or what we call non-active participants. So please know there will be additional communication coming. So before we begin, a couple things I want to mention. Over the past 20 to 24 months, there has been a lot of changes to your retirement plan. A lot. If you probably remember, your plan had close to 30 plus mutual funds. we changed to what we call an open architecture, where we reduced the funds down to about 20 or so, I want to say 2021, right around there. Then from there, we changed what we call an asset class, or fee leveling, if you will, which basically means you get more bang for your buck. All of this has been happened during those 20 plus months, and a lot of communication we send out. So please know if there's any information that you're wanting to know about those changes or what we have done over the past 20 months, please send an email to me, and I'll make sure that you get copies of those changes. Sound good? All right, so let's go ahead and begin. So when we went through this procurement process, please know that we partnered, just like with our health insurance, our medical, dental, and vision, we partner with a consultant. That's Hub International. As it relates to the retirement plan, we also partner with a consultant as well. Also was our co-fiduciary, and that is Innovest Portfolio Solutions. Innovest Portfolio Solutions provides this high level of service, but also detailed service. They are part of other municipalities, City of Aurora, City of Thornton. Actually, I would say the majority of the market share in regards to municipalities, in regards to retirement consulting. Today, they're going to go ahead and present about 30 minutes. We're going to keep this kind of short, 30 to 35 minutes to go over their presentation, but allow you to have time afterwards just to ask questions. Sound good? So without further ado, let me go ahead and introduce Jared Martin as well as Mr. Troy Jensen.
Great. Thank you. And we're going to kind of tag team it here. I think you saying 30 minutes is your way of saying for me not to get too long-winded. I recognize most of you in this room. I've actually worked for the city with the city for the last 17 years, and it was with ICMARC for many of those years. As we talk through these conversations, we don't take it lightly. Money is very personal when you talk about, and especially other people's money and these decisions that we walked through today. And so what Troy and I want to go through today is, again, high level of what's coming, why, and the process to get there, and then the next steps. Because of the complexity and the personal nature of this, at the end, do note that our contact information is going to be available to you out there, and we're always happy to take on those questions. I mean, we did a session just a week ago, and I ran into somebody, and they said, "Hey, I actually have 3 or 4 follow-up questions," and it was nice to go through those because it helped them kind of get over some of what they were told elsewhere, that they felt like, well, I have to move my money out of the plan, or I have to do X, Y, Z. And so I think some of these conversations can be very beneficial. If you don't mind, let's try to get through these bullet points today, and then we'll open it up for Q&A because we might hit some of your points along the way. I'm going to do the first half and turn it over to Troy. But just talk about the plan and who we are, what those changes are, really why the change, who has the authority of making these decisions. And then kind of talking about the relationship with ICMA, what's next, who is the new provider, and what are you going to see from them? What are those benefits, in our opinion? What's the impact to you? And then I do want to kind of put a big kind of asterisk on this one, the third from the last, and we'll come back to this. But if you have any money in this Retirement Income Advantage Fund, we're definitely going to want to have a conversation, because this is the one fund that we'll have to take action on if you're in that fund. So we'll really focus some time on that. And then we'll circle it back up to who do you contact. Now, when you talk about a retirement plan, Keen hit a lot of points on the head. One, the extremely long relationship. But think about the city of Fort Collins over the last 45 years. What's happened with the city? It's grown, right? So what is the employee base done here at the city? It's grown. And that means more contributions going into retirement plan, and the retirement plan assets in the market have grown substantially, right? And so when you talk about retirement plans, you went from, a few employees with a little bit of money to all of a sudden a lot of employees with $500 million, right? That's a lot of responsibility of oversight of a retirement plan. And so as we go through this, we try to provide, this, what we would call fiduciary oversight to how do you make decisions with managing money or the options within those buckets of money. And so here, I think it's at least a nice kind of screenshot to show you the different pieces of a retirement plan. But overall, it is the employer's responsibility to provide fiduciary oversight of the retirement plan, and not only how it's run, but what offerings are within there, what are the services, what are the costs. And so because of that, it's really important that over the years there's been adjustments. And so Keen hit a couple of those points, I think, pretty right on. But you can see here, if we work from, I'll start at the right here, the city of Fort Collins, right? The employer, bless you, the employer has the responsibility of offering the plan, of making sure that they are benchmarking the plan and doing due diligence on an ongoing basis, that they're offering a plan that's competitive and beneficial to the employees within that. So you can see here, of course, and we'll touch on it in a little bit, there's a retirement advisory committee that's overseeing the plans. And as Keen had also mentioned, right now there's 29 plans. Now most employers, how many plans do you think most employers record keep or oversee? One, maybe two, three tops, right? And also when you start about 28, 29, the complexity there is the fact that we got to keep these straight, and then the behind the scenes like payroll, money going in, money going out. So that's part of the operational efficiencies is a big key of this as well. You can see also, I don't know if there's anybody in the room, but Downtown Development Authority has an intergovernmental agreement. The Library District, the Poudre Fire 457, even though the Poudre Fire is a separate entity, right? They do have an agreement, and the oversight on the 457 plan is provided by the city. And then, of course, all city employees fall underneath here. Then we get into the different players within the retirement plan space. And so what our core role is here, you can see Innovest. We are what I would call a investment consultant or investment advisor. We are fee only, so we don't come in, we don't manage any of the money. We don't have any proprietary products. We're not tied to any record keeper or investment management firm. But we simply, as fee only, help understand how does your plan benchmark against others. Are there areas that we think we can improve in efficiency or improve in cost measures to help drive down costs? Because if we can drive down costs for you, the investor, what do you think that'll do over time to the returns of the investments, right? Instead of going back to the companies, it's going back into your pocket. And for us, that's a big deal. But what a fiduciary means is that any decisions we make, we have to make in the best interest of you and not us, right? It's not better for the city. It's not better for Innovest. It's not better for ICMA or Nationwide. It's simply what's better for the participants. So you can see here, our big role is the due diligence and oversight of that plan. And we provide this guidance on an ongoing basis. Then we get to that next level on the left-hand side, and even though it says Nationwide here, I would say record-keeping services, which currently are provided by ICMA-RC, entail all of the underlying, kind of responsibilities here. One of the misnomers I do think currently is a lot of people think, my retirement plan is changing. You're not in the ICMA-RC retirement plan. You're in the City of Fort Collins retirement plan that is being record kept at ICMA-RC. And what that means is they provide processing, they provide an online database, right? So when you log into the website at ICMA. When you call the service center, you call ICMA. When you meet with an ICMA representative, they are just that. They're representing the company. But, record keeper themselves do just that, but they're not necessarily, it's not the ICMA-RC plan, it's the City of Fort Collins retirement plan. And so every so often we have to go through a process to make sure are we still with the best partners based off of kind of what our goals and where we stand as a plan are. So also under here you can see participant education, trustee custodial services, compliance testing, plan document and amendments, and then distribution. I think this is a big one, especially for retirees. I know we have at least a couple of retirees in the room, but we won't point out to where they are. But that's important. How do you get your money out of the plan? But also how do you protect the money? And then the fourth tier here on the left-hand side is the money managers. And money managers are who are we, hoping or trusting over time that's going to take control and manage our money for us to hopefully appreciate. And this is really important. And so one of the major changes that we made 2 years ago was creating a clear delineation between record keeper and money management. And so I'm sure you've all heard within your ICMA accounts the terms Vantage Point or Vantage Trust. Well, those are the funds underneath ICMA that we would call proprietary. So guess what? They're running those funds as well as record keeping. And so we would say, that can create a concern over time. It used to be kind of the way, but the industry has kind of shifted because they're keeping, kind of an unknown amount of money underneath here, as opposed to, hey, we'll send X amount of money for the money manager to Vanguard or whoever that money manager is, and then we'll be clear of what we're paying the record keeper for those record keeping services. And so that was that major change we made. I would actually say, in our opinion, the major change of your retirement plan happened 2 years ago with those fund changes. And I know it affected some of you. And the good news for us is, we feel that it absolutely moved the plan in the right direction. And we're not making major changes with that again. The investments that we're in now with that one exemption I'll tell you about are not changing. The funds will stay the same. And I think that that's a nice benefit for you. So who are we? Just briefly, really beautiful pictures of us. Gordon, myself, and Troy are the team. I would say, a lot of our background is the retirement plan space. Here at the bottom, you can see, and I'd strongly encourage, if you have questions, our website. We advise to roughly $25 billion, and we are, I'd say, locally based, so Colorado-based in the Denver area, and we have 50 employees within our firm. And we really are an investment management consultant, and we co-fiduciary, meaning that we stand with the clients and help you make those decisions. So, if you want to learn a little bit more, again, about our background, happy to, have those conversations. So this, hopefully, and I know, and just to piggyback a comment Keen had made, for those of you that are retirees, we're kind of doing this a tiered approach, so we're glad you're here, but there's definitely going to be more information coming to retirees because, the information wave, as soon as it comes out, what happens? A lot of people get like, oh my God, what's going on? Why is this going on? I need you to answer all these questions, and we're going to be very thoughtful to make sure that we provide the information for you, but we want to make sure that we do it in a way that is acceptable over time to the thought process, not only for us, but for you, the individuals. But I'm glad you're here, and more of these communications will be coming out. So what is changing? Through what we're going to talk about today, you can see a decision has been made to move forward, to move away from the record-keeping services of ICMA-RC, and that's going to be shifted towards NationWide retirement solutions. And so we'll talk about both kind of the why and then what the new process, who the new partner is going to be going forward. Why is this change being made? Not to take it lightly, 45 years with a single, a single record keeper is phenomenal, but every so often you have to what's called check the market, right? And not only is it best practice for you to make sure that we're providing oversight, but it's also part of the procurement or the municipal code that they have to go through this. I would be candid to say, it wasn't anything anybody did wrong or any issues. It was simply, hey, we need to go through this. And if we really wanted to start, most likely the feedback would have been, okay, we got to go through this, but yeah, there's no way we're even going to contemplate making this change, right? But then said, but as you go through this, you have to at least have an open mind. And as the process kind of went through, it became very clear to the committee and the oversight committee, advisory committee, that we're not looking backwards, but we're looking, hey, here's our plan going forward. Who's the best partner? What was the process? You can see the city's governance committee in partnership with us and the procurement. Everything went through procurement, so we followed 100% their guidelines. Went through this process, and you can see what we're really trying to figure out is finding a partner, be it current or a new one, that aligned with the demographics of the organization and cultural fit. Education. I think this is a key one. Education. What does that mean? The people that you meet with. How are we moving the needle to make sure that people can retire? I think that's key. Performance metrics on client satisfaction and loyalty, innovation and technology. That's a key one. Cost, and then I'll go back to technology. And technology not only on the side for us, but technology on the side for the employer as well. So the behind the scenes, can we be efficient in making sure that the plan runs as smoothly and as quickly as possible? So the changes are coming. I will tell you this. I mean, of course, right now we're in the contract phase and having those discussions. And part of that contract phase is how can we simplify from 29 plans down to a manageable, but to make sure that it kind of stays within legalese. So that's part of that contracting phase. ICMARC, our expectation, we don't have a date yet, but it would be sometime in May and June when this ultimate transition occurs. So kind of just kind of keep that in mind, and we'll have a lot more information coming. But until that point, ICMARC is still your current record keeper. So when you want to get information about your account, log in, you're still going to absolutely go to the website. You're going to be able to call ICMARC. And Emily has committed to be on site at least through the end of the first quarter. Just kind of keep that in mind. Next, what we will do is, as Keen mentioned, if you hadn't met him before, you're probably going to get sick of him here pretty shortly because a lot of communication is going to be coming out. I mean that in a nice way, but a lot of communications of here's where we're at, here's the next steps, here's what you got to consider. When can we start to meet with NationWide, and when we're going to have a representative with NationWide? When do I need to set my online account up? What about beneficiaries? All this stuff is going to be coming, right? Because I'm going to tell you, one of the things I'm going to tell you at the end is you don't have to do anything, but I am going to say you really should be doing something, right? It's a good opportunity. I'm going to turn it over to Troy here, but one of the things I'm going to say is at the end also, my contact info and of course Keen, any questions, comments, concerns, feed through us, and we were going to be as transparent as possible to help you through this process. So we'll turn it over to talk about kind of why the change, and then and I'll come back to talk about the end on the impact.
Yeah, thank you. Everybody hear me? So really, we all remember from elementary school the question words, the who, what, where, when, and why. If you've heard that over and over today, Keen talked about it, Jared talked about it. That's why we're here. I mean, the lesser known one is my teen daughters. They like to say, "Huh?" So we'll add that to the Q&A section. There's often a lack of understanding. So I want to make sure we touch on everything in depth, in a way that makes sense to you, that you can be prepared for it. We'll be communicating throughout the process. And the reason for that is we think this is all a benefit. There's really nothing to say that you should be skeptical about. I think we're wired that way as a society at this point, where we expect, what's going to happen afterward when all this is done. What am I going to lose out on? This is really a process that is designed to benefit you. So we'll talk a little bit more in depth about each of those W questions, and we'll get to the Q&A a little bit later. So why the change? We've talked about it a little bit already, but the current contract has been in place for not just years, but decades, a long-term relationship with ICMARC. That's been a productive relationship. It's been a really positive one as the city's grown and changed, as the plans have grown. It's been a really positive thing that we can say that it's gotten better as time goes on. That's a continuation of this process as we move into this next phase of it. Many factors, as Jared talked about, the technology is a big one. NationWide has really invested millions into this process as this kind of refining, competitive, iron sharpens iron approach to record keeping has happened over the years. All of them have gotten better. And so there's a little bit of a leapfrog as they get more and more better systems that provides better benefit to you as retirement savers, as retirees. The investments get better all the way across the board. Cybersecurity is a big one. I don't think there's anyone in the room that probably hasn't had their data lost or stolen in some, whether it's Home Depot, Target, the big corporations, the credit monitoring bureaus. It's all out there, so that security for your information was also a big focus as we went through this search. We think NationWide does a really excellent job of that just because they know as much as anyone. They're dealing with a lot of confidential, secure data that they need to keep track of and not let sort of nefarious types get a hold of. We talked a little bit about education as well. That's a big one. There'll be at least 200 days committed of on-site education that NationWide will provide with financial planners and experts on how the plan works, how to get enrolled, how to make changes, how to use the website. All of that as key components to what you're going to want to do as you think about what you're accumulating for income for later in life. We think that's going to be really effective. The cost is a key one. It's not the end-all, be-all. Obviously, we've all searched for things for products, and if you buy the cheapest one, tends not to be the best bet. But we wanted to get cost and value. This one happens to be really effective from a cost perspective. Jared and I work with retirement plans, as Keen mentioned, across all of Colorado, government plans, 401k plans, everything. So we see the gamut. This is at the very far low end of what you can get as far as cost at 2 basis points or 0.02%, 0.02% for the cost of the record-keeping services. So we think that's a big benefit too. The efficiency is one, again, that technology, the really, when you have the scale of a record keeper the size of NationWide, you're able to do things in an efficient way without losing that personal touch, losing the effectiveness of what it does for you as retirement savers. So the next W question, the who, makes the decision. We talked about the fiduciary status of the committee. These are people, again, we work with a lot of committees, a lot of employers that have people dedicated to the retirement plan. Having worked with them, these are people that think about this a lot. I go back to my early days. I worked for a record keeper when I started my career as a junior person, jumped into the call center, taking calls from participants like you on beneficiary questions, investment questions. That was my intro, and I've never lost that connection to who we're serving. That's retirement savers, because I am one. I participate in a retirement plan too. That's why we're here. And I don't think this committee takes that lightly. The fiduciary status means they're looking out for the best interest of all of us as part of the city, as savers for retirement. And that really doesn't get lost in the process when we're looking at different providers to connect to it. Innovest as a partner, as was mentioned earlier, we're a full fiduciary as well. We have a flat fee that we charge. We don't have any benefit from choosing one provider or another. We don't get any other revenue. So it allows us to stay focused on that same goal. Factors considered, we talked about these already, but pricing, technology, and innovation. We've seen this tremendous competition across the record-keeping industry, where there's the competition to have that market share. So really, they're giving away their services in a way that we wouldn't have expected even just a few years ago at a price that we think is fantastic for us as retirement savers. It really makes things efficient and kind of a benefit that way. Organizational culture and background. NationWide is a giant company. They're nationwide. We'll talk about that in just a minute. The name really reflects who they are. They are across the United States. It's what they do, both in insurance and retirement products. So just to mention again, ICMA didn't lose this process. It was really, it's fun when you have a competitive process that any choice would be a good one. And so it comes down to 2 providers that would really do the job well. We know ICMA. They've been part of the relationship, the connection here for quite a long time. And so it was tough to leave that behind, but in the end, the process just came down to, we felt NationWide would do a better job going forward, but it was pretty marginal. So really there's a sense of gratitude, a sense of continued connection to ICMA-RC as a provider. As Jared alluded to, we're not losing anything. It wasn't an ICMA plan. It's the Fort Collins plan, but at the same time, there's probably some connections there with employees, with educators, with financial planners. We hope that will continue to be a focus, and we know with the number of education days and financial planning days that it should be. So what happens next? The process here, we've got some decisions left to go. It's sort of the nuts and bolts of how do we get the contracts arranged, how we make sure that everything is set up structurally. We're very close in that process now. Once that starts to happen, you'll get more communication as to the timing. We think probably early summer is when the actual transition is likely to be slated in. We'll give you more details each step of the way. Having done this a number of times, the more we can be upfront and communicate as to what's going on, the more we stave off some of those questions, some of the concerns that you may have already, some that may come down the road. We'll talk about what happens with your investments, what you need to do, or even not do in some cases. It should map over pretty straightforward. NationWide will be on site. You'll get a chance to meet them, to understand who they are, what they bring to the table. I think you'll enjoy having them as a presence here, both from an education standpoint and just the support of what they're going to bring on the record-keeping side. Importantly, a full-time local CFP, a certified financial planner, will be dedicated to the city. So that's someone that's going to be focused strictly on serving the employees here in what they need for both investment decisions, planning, the really making sense of how you operate within this retirement plan to make sure it's going to be effective for you. So who's Nationwide? We talked about that. I mentioned their name, Nationwide, reflects really who they are. They're across the country. They have insurance services. They have 34,000 associates in aggregate. About 1,700 of those are focused on their retirement record keeping business. There's also additional financial planners, educators, the different ancillary pieces that go into that. But that's a big focus of what they do as a provider. We think that they're going to be a great partner. Again, with Innovest, we work with a wide variety of record keepers. We usually try and find the best fit based on the demographics, based on the needs, based on each plan sponsor and what they're looking for, what you as employees might benefit best from. We felt in this case that Nationwide was the best fit. I mentioned that local service team. There'll be somebody in town here that's going to be available pretty much year-round. 200 days of devoted education. They'll be available for, if you prefer technology, they've got that set up. You can do it through the website, through the phone, through apps, various ways to connect. We want to make sure that everybody has their own means to be thinking about retirement savings. Tends to be an afterthought for most people, but we're going to depend on it for a lot of income for a number of years after we hit retirement. So I want to change that to an active thought, something that's really a focus of what we're doing. Having educators around on a consistent basis helps us do that really well. So I think Jared's going to jump in here. We'll talk a little bit about what the impact is to you. If we're going to repeat things, that's intentional. We want to make sure that we're touching on each of these points in a couple different ways, but then we'll get to some Q&A afterward that helps fill in the gaps if we didn't hit it through the process.
So one of the major question is, what's the impact to you? Now, on one hand, we'd say there's nothing you have to do, but on the other hand, again, it's a big change, right? So there's going to be a lot of impact in the fact that we'll need to reestablish beneficiaries and online accounts, but to start from the top, there's no action that is absolutely required from you, the individual, because what will happen is, and part of the reason it's a longer process is, ICMARC and Nationwide will work together to make sure that the files are, absolutely in line, and they don't want to have anything happen that puts you, the participant, in a worse situation. So if you're taking distributions would stay the same. If you have a loan outstanding and you're paying it back, guess what? It'll stay the same. They'll shift or transfer all this over. If you're contributing to Fund X, you're going to continue to contribute to Fund X. So there's no action that's required. And I think the second bullet point is very important, that the fund lineup, the actual investments in the plan, are going to stay the same. You can see at the bottom, maybe I should make it a little bit bigger, but the exception is if you're in the annuity fund, they can't, that is an ICMARC product, and they cannot take that to Nationwide. And then the second one is if you're in the cash fund or the plus fund at ICMARC, that will shift because the plus fund is a proprietary investment option within ICMA, and it'll go to a stable value fund or a cash fund that's very similar at Nationwide. Everything else, if you're in the Vanguard 500 Index Fund, you're going to transfer to the Vanguard 500 Index Fund. So actually your funds don't change at all. There will be what's called a blackout period, which sounds horrible, right? But what it means is, and I would tell you that it's become so much more efficient, that when the assets do ultimately transfer from, because they're the custodian as well, so they're holding the assets. So when the assets transfer and the accounts are going from ICMARC to Nationwide, this does take place, and they have to make sure that they're verifying the account and how they're invested, and they're going to shift these over to Nationwide, and so it's called a blackout period. So a couple days prior to the actual transition date, you are not going to be able to access or log into your account and or make changes. It will lock it, basically. Now, if you're invested in the market, they'll stay invested in the market. So you'd want to be cautious to say, hey, if you're somebody that's all in cash, but you decide to go all in the market for a short time frame because you're trying to be all optimistic, and then all of a sudden something get really nervous, you wouldn't be able to go in and make a change, right? So we really want to make sure that you're comfortable with where your portfolio is prior to the blackout date. Most of the time, the blackout period, and I believe they said 1 to 2 days is what this blackout period will be. Now put that relative. If I was doing this 10 years ago, blackout periods were 2 to 3 weeks. right? Now, they might happen a little bit quicker, but they're going to say, hey, you know what, we're going to black out your portfolio for 2 weeks, so we can do all the behind the scenes work. Well, the good news is we can do so much of the behind the scenes work leading up to it that with it, usually it would be blackout starts on Thursday, transfer happens on Friday, and then by Monday morning, you're going to be up and going within your new account with NationWide. But this is something that you'll want to pay attention to when the communication comes out of that blackout period. Money stays invested, contributions stay the same, distributions stay the same, loan payments stay the same, all of this stays the same. Now, this is the one fund, and I know we had a lot of questions, at least the first week. As I mentioned, ICMARC has a fund in the current lineup called the Vantage Trust Retirement Income Advantage Fund. This is a fund that provides insurance, or it takes your portfolio, it's 60% stocks, 40% bonds, but it's wrapping it with insurance to protect the downside risk of the market. So it's giving you kind of a guarantee of the investment, but it's still your asset. If you are in this fund and you don't do anything, right now we are not going to have a fund like this in the NationWide plan, and there's a couple of reasons why, but part of it is some issues like this, like the portability issue. If you don't do anything, this money would map to a balanced portfolio at NationWide, roughly 60-40, and you would no longer have that annuity portion of it. If you are interested in keeping the guaranteed fund that you already have, there is the opportunity, because the guarantee in ICMA is not an insurance company, so they're actually not providing that guarantee. Prudential Insurance is providing this guarantee. And so what we have the ability to do is actually keep the fund, almost identical as it is today, but moving it to Prudential, and then they'll keep providing the same guarantees that you have. Now, I say almost the same. The actual product or investment at Prudential is a little bit cheaper, so you'd actually save money in the long run if you did decide to move that account to Prudential. And that's both if you are already retired or if you're still working and you have money in this account. Now, I would say this is a conversation point that if you're in this fund, we should have a conversation. Me and you and Troy, one of us should have this conversation to say, are you still convicted? Because what it does provide, the guarantee, is a withdrawal rate of 5%, or roughly 5%, depending on how old you are when you lock it in. If you have $10,000 in this fund, it's probably not the fund that we need to be having $10,000 in, because a 5% withdrawal on $10,000 when you retire, that's not going to move the needle a lot, right? It's for those of you that might have $800,000 or $500,000 or $1 million in this plan that like this as that income source. That's when I would say a lot of times we'd look at shifting it to Prudential. So this is the one fund that we would absolutely have to take action with before moving before the blackout period. And I would say this is something that we probably should take care of in April because of what that time frame will be. And then the last piece I will, before I open it up to questions, is what about ancillary products? So some of you have RHS plans, retirement health savings plans, and this is mostly collectively bargained plans under police and fire. But currently those are with ICMARC. And we're in the process, but we're 99% sure that those will also move to NationWide for efficiency and for significantly less cost. And so for those two reasons and having the accounts together, we would be able to keep the plans as currently constructed for how money goes in, how money comes out. But those would move to NationWide as well. And they call this the PEP, P-E-H-P, which is Post-Employment Health Plan. And then the last one here is the Roth IRA. This is probably a little bit more convoluted because does anybody know what IRA actually means? What's that? Close, individual, right? So, and that's where it's a little tricky. It's an individual retirement account. Thank you. And all that the city is, or the employer is allowing, is a payroll slot to put money into the IRA, but they're actually not providing guidance or oversight of the investments. So right now, at least the plan is that we're not going to be moving these in earnest across the board to Nationwide. It might be something we want to consider or talk about. And truth is, we don't know if it'll continue to have a payroll slot open to them. That's something that I would say is still kind of on the horizon. But the Roth IRA and payroll IRA accounts through ICMARC right now would be staying with ICMARC. So that's at least the information of where we're at today. I would say on that front, there's probably more information to come. This was a hot question on Tuesday this week. Does Nationwide have IRA products? And again, that's information that we can get more information on. But as of right now, we're going to kind of leave those alone because they are not under the purview of this Retirement Governance Committee. So with that, I'm going to stop and say, where were the hot buttons? What questions do you have? And the tough ones are going to Troy. Sir. Great question. Okay, so if you are separated or retired, so the question is what happens to retirees? Again, it's a plan, right? So if they're employed or retired, if their money's in the plan, it would map under the plan still because the whole plan is moving to Nationwide. Now, let's say they're retired and they're taking distributions. Yeah, so if you're taking $1,000 a month through this process, they will continue, or they'll make everybody, whole, meaning they'll keep it the same. So they would continue to get that information and distributions exactly the same. Now, if in that regard, if somebody did decide, hey, I love the comfort of knowing where I've been all these years, and I actually would rather stay with ICMA, and I'm retired, I don't want to go with the plan. Do you have that right? And the simple answer is yes, but with a big asterisk that you would actually have to roll your money out of the plan, create an IRA, pay whatever fees are in that IRA. And so to Troy's point, when we talk about fees, most likely you're going to be paying significantly more as an individual in an IRA than you would by staying within that plan. And then the second question there is, and you have to ask the question, if you decide to do that, how are you going to get serviced going forward from, if it's an individual you've been meeting with? Well, if they no longer are coming to Fort Collins to service the plan, how are they going to be meeting with individuals? And I don't know the answer to that, but that would be a question that I would definitely want you to ask. Good question. Other questions? Do you want to, retirees? Come on, you got some. Okay.
Please.
You've got 2 retired people on the committee. Are they maintaining, or are you replacing Mike and Wendy on the advisory committee through the process?
So the question is, on the governance committee, the retirement governance committee, Mike Beckstead and Wendy Williams retiring from the city. Are we replacing them? What's our options? So Jeff Mihalik is actually on the Retirement Governance Committee. Jeff appointed Wendy Williams through this process due to timing, because when we go through something like this, we need to make sure that someone attends every meeting, and also, more importantly, travel. It's just a lot, and it's a big commitment. So we're extremely appreciative for Wendy for that. Mike will still be on board through the city and will oversee this transition, as well as participate and provide guidance to the governance committee. And then at a later decision, we'll make an announcement. A good question, very good question. Other questions you guys may have? How about I'll pass along some questions I've been receiving via email. And please know, feel free to email me. Throughout this process, as you send questions to me, please know that we'll make sure that all of those questions you have are answered. But common questions that we are receiving are loans, like Jared had mentioned. They're going to transfer right over. Other questions that we have been getting for the last 2 meetings are the Roth IRA. Are we going to offer? Are we not going to offer? What are those options? Please know that we're still reviewing what Nationwide is able to provide. And the reason for this is just to make sure that you're kept along. You're following the same process that we are. So you're actually kept in the loop as we're kept in the loop. More to come, though, in the next few weeks. So we'll definitely pass that information along. So please know that. Other pieces I want to let you know. Once the contract is signed, Nationwide is going to be here on site, and they're going to be on site quite a bit. And please know that is not only for active participants, for retirees as well. So Nationwide will be here. We'll have a big communication guide that will be at multiple locations. And as Jared had mentioned, we're actually going to have someone on site full-time as well. So there's a lot happening with this decision. Other questions that we do receive? Yes. Oh, but
Will we be able to set up nationwide accounts and logins prior to the blackout date, or will all that happen after?
yes, you will. So the question is, can we set up our accounts with Nationwide prior to the blackout date? Yes, you will be, and there will be communication for that.
And of course, we'd encourage that. So by the time you want to log in to actually see your account, it's pretty seamless.
So a couple other minor housekeeping pieces. Number one, please go onto your ICMA account, update your addresses. Please update your addresses. Number two, update your beneficiaries. So when you go online to ICMARC and you update your beneficiary, you may have only updated for the 401. Please know that you may have a 457 as well. So please update that information. And if you need assistance to get access to EasyLink, please call us in HR. We'll be more than happy to walk you through that process, okay? Any other questions? Yes.
Any idea on service from Prudential?
So question on Prudential service, you meaning if you rolled money in an IRA there, you'd be serviced with them. I don't think they'd have a local person necessarily, but the ability to have somebody via the phone. You know, we've had this happen with a couple other employers, and you know the feedback has been good because most people are already set up, and the reason they're rolling money there is simply to get that guaranteed payout. So it's been pretty seamless in the fact that they don't really need to have much interaction with Prudential, other than up front, and then of course on the backside if something were to happen, you had to make changes. So, but that's a good question. I will put a note down just to follow up on that.
On the Prudential annuities, it's still an income advantage product, or is it their regular 5% annuity?
Yeah, so if you rolled the money out, so currently it's called the Income Advantage Fund with ICMARC, would it still be called the Income Advantage Fund if you moved it to Prudential? And the answer is no, because it would be no longer an ICMARC wrapped fund. I believe they call it the Income Flex Fund or product. I'm not 100% sure the technical terms, which is interesting because right now Prudential is kind of the lead, or they're the ones that are providing the guarantee really across the industry. So if it's ICMA or Prudential or other firms, it's all backed by Prudential. But the benefit is it's the same portfolio breakdown, but because it's Prudential funds, it's a little bit cheaper. So you're actually saving about 0.1%. So
You know if that annuity would be portable also, like if there was a local advisor that you wanted to make broker of record or something?
So the question is, could you have a local broker of record on the Prudential annuity? I would have to double check on that. My thought would be yes, because you're now an IRA annuity holder at Prudential, but you know it is kind of a specific product. So the problem with that could be that advisor is not getting compensation of it. So are they going to provide great service? I don't know.
Is that available in the 457 and 401?
Is the Income Advantage Fund available in the 401 and the 457? The answer is yes. Not the ICMA Roth IRA, just the 401 and the 457. So we'll stick around for additional questions. Our contact info is up here. I mean, please feel free. You know, we're here to kind of guide you through the process. So thank you.
Brendan in the booth, thank you so much, my friend. I appreciate it.